Good afternoon, everybody. This is Kevin Kern from Advisors Capital Management. I'm one of the partners here, and I'm happy to bring you to our monthly webcast with Focus Partners. Focus Partners are the folks that are giving us some practice management and some client acquisition advice month to month. And of course, we're trying to help you build your practice and assist you in any way we can. I hope you will give us your feedback on these presentations and see if they're helping you, and if there's other areas that you'd like to discuss. Because with resources like the Focus Partner Group, we can dig out there and get the answers for you. Our speakers today are Micah Silver and Eric Shekowitz, and they are the founding partners of Focus Partners. These fellas are coaches, and they've been throughout the financial industry, each of them over 25 years, dealing with the highest level of management and sales in financial industry across the country. And today they're going to be talking about the value proposition. Who are you? What's your story? What makes you unique? And even more importantly, when it comes that moment at the barbecue when the client is thinking about giving you as a referral, what are they going to say about you? What's going to make them have you come up in their mind? So with that, I'm going to introduce Michael Silver, who'll start the presentation today. Michael?
Thanks, Kevin, and good afternoon, everybody. Kevin, if you could just share the screen, please. We'll get started with the slides. Appreciate everyone taking the time to join us this afternoon. We've done a series of these probably, I think we're in month 5 or 6 right now, and we'll continue to do these every month, the presentations. And the talks we do cover 2 core areas of an advisory practice. One is all on the practice management side, which is more today's conversation, which is all about process and infrastructure and planning and differentiation. And then the other side of the coin, which is also interspersed throughout these topics, is all about growth and acquisition and marketing. Our topic for next month is based on a theme of client onboarding, your new client onboarding process. But today's is all about telling your story, and it's all about your value proposition. And what I want you to realize is when we're talking about value proposition, that's an industry term, but there are many other interchangeable terms for your value proposition, like your elevator pitch, your mission statement, your story. And it's critical in today's marketplace, which we'll get into, that you take a step back, whether you're in business 3 months or 35 years. We just met an advisor who's in the business since 1957. When he was licensed, which is fascinating. But he too needs to take a step back because things are different today and work on articulating his story and why someone should deal with him and his team. So with that said, a little bit of an overview today as far as the value proposition. First of all, we're going to talk about why it's important. Okay. Second of all, what actually is a value proposition? There's actually a definition of what it is, so you're clear on what type of statement you're trying to craft before you put pen to paper. Then we're going to talk about the recipe. If any of you like to cook, you know any good recipe needs the right ingredients. There are 4 key ingredients to what we call a top-notch value proposition. And then finally, we're going to give you some examples. We're going to start with the ugly. It's actually a laughable version of a value proposition. Then we'll show you just a bad one, which is a step up from ugly. And then we'll actually get to 2 examples that are very strong, purposeful value propositions that are all encompassing with those ingredients that I just mentioned. And one thing I should share that I didn't say at the beginning is, like Kevin said, as coaches, we are industry coaches and consultants working with advisors and firms of all shapes and sizes. We're here to share best practices. And one thing we want you to think about, Eric will mention it again at the end of the discussion, is if any of you are interested, we'd love to offer a complimentary coaching session. It's a chance for us to learn about your practice, pick our brains, as well as us giving the time to share some best practices ideas with you. We work in a coaching capacity with many advisors and firms who have a relationship with Advisors Capital and are happy to help any way we can. So let's talk about first why value proposition is important. If you look on the slide here, there's a number, it's 365,000 plus. This is your competition. You know, we'll ask in a live presentation, ask people, what's this number mean? And some people say, well, it's 1,000 in GDC or production per day, or the number of shoes in Imelda Marcos's closet, and everybody gets a little chuckle. The point is, this is a real number, and this is your competition. And if you look out the window from where you're sitting right now, whether it's across your office internally, or downstairs, or across the street, or across town, there's a lot of competition. There are many, many people wearing a similar hat to what you wear every day, vying for that same share of wallet from your existing clients or obviously prospective clients. And don't think for a second that people are not calling on your existing clients, trying to put a chink in the armor of your relationship and trying to woo you over to their, wooing your client to their firm. So you always need to be, on your toes here and aware that there is a lot of competition. And the point of today's discussion is, how are you different from other people? So you're going to get a good little chuckle out of these next couple of slides. But if my wife says, hey, Michael, stop on the way home to the supermarket, get me a can of beans, amongst other things that are on her list. A can of beans are a can of beans are a can of beans. She doesn't really care what brand I get, whether it's name brand, generic, or one of the 6 different supermarkets that are within a mile of my house, and 2 of them have opened in the last 6 months. Okay? It's commoditized. There's not a lot of differentiation in brand, in price, in taste, and whatever other adjective you want to throw in there. So your goal as advisors is, when you're looking at these cans of beans, to boom, stand out from the crowd. And you're laughing right now, I know. And, this guy's probably dressed up for a Halloween party. We're not advocating that. But what the point of this slide is, how do you stand out from the crowd? Okay, we're going to sound like a broken record today, but it's critical that you revamp and revisit your story. So according to Investopedia, which is essentially an online encyclopedia full of good definitions and juicy information, they define a value proposition as, quote, a marketing statement that summarizes why a prospect should use your services. This statement should convince a potential client that one particular advisor adds more value or is better at solving a problem than another advisor. I mean, think about that for a second. That's what this is all about. And a lot of firms in varying capacities have pre-canned value propositions and mission statements and mantras and whatever you want to call it. But I would like you to really consider personalizing one to your practice, your personality, and the types of clients and prospects, and even centers of influence that you're trying to work with. So if you want to put some questions to this, in very simple terms, in our opinion, a value proposition is about the following questions. And you'll see the word you is in highlights, regardless of the name on the door. If you work for a big firm or it's your own shingle out front, it's all about you. You are the relationship manager. You are the one that clients are dealing with, not necessarily the firm. And yes, there are resources available at all different levels with all different types of firms, but it's you. You are the first line of defense. So what sets you apart from your competition? What makes you unique versus others? What do you have to offer versus your competition? Why are you the right choice? And I've seen multiple scenarios where an advisor or advisory team goes in to meet with a potential client, and they're 3rd out of 3. They're the last meeting, but they've won the business because they have something that's a little bit different. In our past webinars, Eric has talked about the movie Spinal Tap, which was a rockumentary or a rock documentary that came out many years ago. And the guitar player had an amp, and amps, if you know, only go up to 10. His amp went up to 11. So again, our question to you is, how can you amp up your differentiation and your service model and your offerings to be a little bit different from everybody else? And how do you add value? What are those benefits, those ancillary differences between you and other advisory practices? I'm just going to hand it over to Eric.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody can hear me okay. This is Eric Shikowitz, going to continue to walk you through the recipe for a great, fantastic value proposition. So when you think about your value proposition, you have to think about the fact that this is really your personal story. This is what makes you, you, like Michael was saying. And when you think about it in terms of a story, there are certain things that you want to get across in a story. A story has beginning, middle, and end. It has, different characters, different ingredients, different things that are a part of it. From my perspective, there are 4 key ingredients, or chapters, if you will, that will go into your personal story. People want to know what you do, how you do it, who you do it for, and ultimately, what are the benefits? And of course, we're talking benefits to the client, the prospect, the COI, the people you're looking to build relationships with, not the benefits to you, the advisor. So let's step through all these in sequential order. Because when you have all these ingredients, you really do have, at that point, a really good, sound value proposition. So first and foremost, we have, what do you do? So what are you ultimately trying to accomplish for your clients, your prospects? What image are you trying to portray? I like to joke around that I'm showing my age here. Back in the day, there was this commercial that said you only have 10 seconds to make a great first impression. Well, this is what it comes down to. You have 10 seconds to basically at least get the sound bite across of what you're trying to accomplish and what image you want to portray. Are you trying to portray that you're a personal CFO, hypothetically, or a financial quarterback is another one, or relationship manager, because at the end of the day, we manage relationships. So what, are you trying to accomplish? That's the first thing, that if you went to a cocktail party and you shook hands with somebody and they said, hey, what's your name? My name's Eric. What's yours? The next thing that's going to come out is, what do you do? And you have to be prepared to answer that in a really nice, compelling fashion. Next, it's going to be, how do you do it? So how do you ultimately do what you do? What's your process? Are you into holistic financial planning? Do you help people map out how they're going to get from point A to point Z? From my perspective, I have and used to have what I call a 3-meeting or 3-conversation process. From my perspective, my first conversation with somebody was always about their life. I want to know what makes them tick. I want to know what's important to them. Because at the end of the day, people make financial decisions based upon life triggers, based upon things that happen in their life. Think about it like this. If I met you for the first time and I said, hey, Robert, great to meet you. How much did you make last year? That's a pretty awkward conversation. But if I say, hey, Robert, great to meet you. What'd you do last weekend? Tell me about your family. And we start having regular life conversation, that's a lot easier. It's a lot easier for people to talk about the things that go on in their life. And then, like I mentioned, the reality is people make their financial decisions based upon a life trigger. No one wakes up on the first of the year and says, wow, January 1st, I think I'll start investing this year. Maybe I'll get one of those college saving 529 things this year. No. People make that financial decision based upon the things that happen in their life. They get promoted, hypothetically, or they get downsized, unfortunately, or they get married, they get divorced, they have kids, they have grandkids, they sell their home. All these triggers that force people to think in a financial mindset. So we need to hook into the life aspect and the life conversation first. Because when we talk about the life first, then it becomes much easier to talk about the financial. And really, at the end of the day, the products and services that we offer and talk about as advisors really are just what I call the means to the end. It's just the means to the end. They're the products and services that we're offering our clients to help them reach whatever goals they're setting for themselves, whatever is coming up in their life. That's why the life conversation comes first. Then you have the financial conversation or meeting 3. Well, we always win the business, right? Anytime we make a pitch and we make a proposal, we're always getting the business. So when we get that business, what are we doing? We're investing, we're doing asset allocation, we're rebalancing as time goes on, we're having ongoing communication and dialogue and reviews with our clients, all the things that we do during the normal course of our lives as advisors. So what I like to tell the people that we work with as clients is that at the end of the day, people don't need to know the nitty-gritty of what we do, but they need to know that we have some sort of process to get people from point A to point Z. So the next piece of your value proposition puzzle is, how do you do it? Next, we have, who do you do it for? Now, if I was to ask everybody on the phone, if you were able to actually respond, and I said, hey, do you have a target audience or niche that you go after? Some of you may raise your hands and some of you may not. But let me tell you my favorite niche. Maybe some of you have it, maybe some of you don't, but my favorite niche are crane operators. So I'm sure a lot of you are laughing, and I'm sure there are probably a large number of you that do not have crane operators as their particular niche. So I hope everybody can hear me. So it's connecting to audio here.
We got you.
We got you? Okay, good. So, so that particular niche, no one on the phone probably has that particular niche. So the reason I use that as an example, is because no one has that particular niche on market, it's something that's under the radar. It's something that is not being used by a lot of advisors. Kevin, I don't know if you have the slides on your side, but I think I may have lost the connection, or it may have come back up. Hopefully everybody can see that. I apologize, everybody. We had a little bit of a network connection there.
We had a little bit of a breakdown there.
Okay, so talking about niches again, I apologize for the little snafu there with the technology. So the niche, a lot of advisors don't have that particular niche. So that's a great example of what I would call a picture perfect, Willy Wonka golden ticket, view of what a niche could be. It's under the radar. So I always tell advisors that I work with in firms, if you can find a market that is under the radar and that is underserved, go after it with a vengeance, because that's what we all look for. That's the Nirvana Willy Wonka golden ticket. But the reality is you can't always find that. Sometimes it's very hard to find that niche market, that's completely underserved. That's okay. If you can't find the niche market that's underserved, find a market that's at least big enough to support another, more than one advisor. So the town that Michael and I live in, we have the U.S. headquarters for BMW, Mini Cooper, and Mercedes-Benz. I'd like to think there's probably more than one advisor doing a pretty good job at those entities because they're big enough to support more than one advisor. So no matter what side you go on, I talk to a lot of firms, and some people say, you know what, I have a defined niche. Some people say, I don't really have a defined niche. I just want to go after people that are nice to deal with. They take my advice. There's good future potential, kind of your ideal client profile. I don't care which way you go. Just make sure that whichever side you decide to play on, just make sure that your message resonates with the particular audience that you're in front of. So then once you have that last, that other piece down, who do you do it for? And, then the person you're talking to at the cocktail party might say, okay, I get it. This is great. But what are the benefits, right? Why should I talk to you? Why should I work with you over one of the 365 other advisors that are out there? This is a lot of competition, as Michael mentioned. So how are people going to benefit by working with you? What service do you deliver? So what does your service model look like? How do you segment your clients? How do you deliver that family office feel? How do you deliver that wow experience? What does your onboarding process look like? What does your wow client experience look like? How are your roles and responsibilities defined so that when people come into contact with your firm and your practice, they are getting the optimal experience, right? You want something that's concise, compelling, and creative. At the end of the day, these 4 ingredients are what people want to know. If you can get these points across, and here's the thing, we don't want people, when they're asked, hey, what do you do for a living? We don't want people rolling out a long, piece of paper, 8.5 by 11, and reading verbatim, oh, I do this, and, this is, who I do it for, and this is what the benefits are. No, this comes up in the normal course of conversation. And in some cases, you may not get all of this across in one shot. That's okay. You want to be able to have your formal value proposition because, again, this is your story that's going to allow you to articulate to people why they should work with you over somebody else. The other thing you may want to consider within your value proposition and your story are stories. So the more relatable you can make it to the people in the audience that you're in front of, the easier it's going to be to get somebody to have more interest and want to have further conversation. So what I always like to do when somebody asks what I do is I have my value proposition and I talk about what it is that we do and the value I bring to the table. But then I also say, you know what, a really great way to really explain what we do is to tell you about a recent situation I worked on. I recently had an advisor who was, bringing his son into the practice, and he had a junior partner in addition, and we had to work through, there was a lot of, moving parts that we had to work through, not to mention the personalities and making sure that the junior partner didn't feel that it was being pushed out. So I can have a story, and I have different stories for all different situations, depending what advisors and what firms I'm in front of. So if you can come up with different stories, then it becomes really relatable to the people that you're in front of. So as you're thinking about the different ingredients and the different things that go into your value proposition, also think about the different stories that you could be working on that can make you relatable to the people that you want to build relationships with. So now let's talk about the bad and the ugly. So here's a couple of examples of some bad and ugly value propositions. So the first one is I'm a stockbroker for XYZ Investments, and I trade stocks so people can have more money. Now, that may have worked back in the day, back in, the 70s and maybe even the 80s, but it certainly doesn't work now. That's a very, I would say, advisor-centric statement. And here's an even worse one, in my opinion. My mission is to grow my business by investing money for as many clients as I can so I can play golf 2 days a week. Now, that might be the reality, right? Maybe you want to go out and play golf 2 days a week. I wouldn't advocate telling your clients that or your prospects or COIs. So again, this is a really funny, very off the chart example of, a bad and an ugly value proposition. So now let's take a look at the good. And I'm not going to read these all word for word. You could read them on your screen. But, just take a look, at the first one, right? I assist high net worth individuals, families, and businesses and institutions. So right off the bat, we know who they do it for, right? They're telling you right off the bat who they're doing it for. They're, talking about short and long-term, wealth preservation, tax planning. So they're telling you how you do it. They're telling you their process, right? They have a time-tested investment process, which allows them to be flexible and adapt to a rapidly changing economic environment. So they have the componentry of a good value proposition in here. So when kind of the litmus test on the value proposition is see if it has the ingredients. See if it says, how you do what you do. See if it says who you do it for. See if it talks about your process. See if it talks about the benefits that somebody is going to get by working with you. That's the litmus test of a really good, solid value proposition. And then the last thing I would kind of coach everybody to do here is to incorporate what we call practice tenets. And these are your guiding principles. I like to say these are the things that really define you and define how you do business, and more importantly, how you ultimately treat your clients. So for example, I like to say how we operate. How we operate, I focus on my clients. I make it easy to do business with me. I'm always professional. I believe in what I do. I'm passionate about what I do. And at the end of the day, I keep it simple. The world of investing, can be a complicated thing, and I try to keep it simple, for my clients and for the people that I work with. And then I always like to say, this is what we promise you. So this is how we operate, but we promise to always make you feel welcome and make you feel good, to always provide a high quality client experience, to always respond promptly to inquiries, and to always make you feel listened to at the end of the day. So in addition to what I would say the core value proposition, you may want to think about incorporating some practice tenets as well. And we actually have a lot of teams and firms that will actually have their practice tenets. They frame them, they put them on their desk, they hang it on the wall, they put it in the conference room, because it's really a nice way of letting clients know, look, we care about you. You're not just a number to us. We operate a family office type environment within the confines of the world that we're in. And we strive to treat every client as if they're the only client that we have. So a combination between your value proposition and your practice tenets, you have a really compelling reason for people to want to speak with you over somebody else. So we hope you got some great information out of this. I encourage everybody to revisit their value proposition. As a coach, I do this every year with the clients and the firms that I work with, because things change, right? The environment changes, the economy changes, your dynamic could change. Maybe you're a sole practitioner and you're, having more people join your firm. Maybe you're bringing, your son or daughter into the business. Maybe the market that you're going after has changed and you need to go after a new market. So there's a lot of things that will actually, and variables that will come into play that will actually, I don't want to say force you, but, give you the impetus to revisit your value proposition. So I encourage everybody to revisit this on a yearly basis, because at the end of the day, you only have a few minutes to make that first impression. So you want to make sure you're putting your best foot forward and making sure you're separating yourself from the competition and giving people a very compelling reason to talk to you and work with you over one of the 365,000 other people they could potentially choose from. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Kevin, but I would like to put out there, if anybody's interested in what we do as coaches, and how we coach and how we help advisors and firms grow their business, we'd like to offer everybody on the call a complimentary coaching session. It's a great opportunity to learn about coaching, get some coaching for yourself, bring some areas of opportunity to the table, and get some real coaching on some things that you want some coaching on. Worst case scenario, you get some good ideas. So if anybody's interested in a complimentary coaching session, you could absolutely reach out to us. Our contact information is on the screen, or Kevin and his team could certainly get you in contact with us as well. But I'd like to thank everybody, and Kevin, we'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Eric. And I really encourage anybody, you just take up Eric and Michael on this offer to work on your value propositions. Take that consultation and make yourself unique so your clients remember you when it's time to refer you. And we have used Eric and Michael here for our own corporate training, and I can contest that it was well worth the time. So contact them directly, or contact your ACM wholesaler, or contact us directly, and we'll get you involved with it. So remember, next time we're going to meet in about a month, and we're going to talk about new client onboarding, which is a key to making your client feel important in those first 90 days. One of the things I learned from Focus Partners: make your clients remember why they came to you in those first 90 days, and they're going to teach you how to make sure you have a process of onboarding the client and making them feel part of your family. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you soon.